forensic journalist, data journalist.
Boom, 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 boom. All right, we are live.
Now until forever, basically.
We are
Tonight,
watching
we'll unveil
the CNN hosted Donald Trump versus Joe Biden presidential debate. Can't lie, I'm pretty excited to watch two 80-year-old men completely forget about what topics they're speaking about within the first 30 seconds of answering a question. I think the whole world is pretty pretty interested in watching this. I won't be surprised with how things turn out though. I have lots of preconceived notions on how things will be going tonight, and I'd be interested to see how accurate they are. I want to hear what these people have to say though. I'm interested.
Like their tax plan or their health plan, or in the case of Trump, who has talked about a lot of things that he was going to unveil. It just hasn't happened. There's no big policy discussion.
Think about how much we used to talk about healthcare. I mean, in the Obama years. And it was a constant, and then in the Democratic primary, one of the things is that ideas weren't really debated in the Republican primary because the major candidate didn't participate. So we haven't had
Hey, what's up, Lincoln?
Policy debates have kind of the last several cycles, but they're
it's gonna be interesting. It's two very old men gonna be on stage together, and most likely forgetting what they're talking about. Mostly Biden, of course, but I'm sure Trump's gonna have some slip ups as well. It should be pretty funny stuff. But, exciting nonetheless. Yeah, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good.
Cats.
We gotta stay up late for this stuff.
Joe Biden made a policy pledge, right? Yes. I will nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court, and I will make that happen on my first choice. That was a new policy thing. It was a headline. It was something you could put on this. What's to say one of them doesn't do that tonight?
But yeah, the thing is, Biden's just very, very old, and he's showing signs of dementia, signs of Parkinson's that a lot of physicians have been, well, noticing and commenting about. So it is a little freaky. I don't know how he's gonna be up on stage tonight talking at all. I think that's why they had to get rid of the crowd and they had to mute the mics, because it's gonna be really distracting to him if they had a crowd. But we'll see. I don't know, man. I'm definitely excited though. I think it's gonna be pretty funny stuff. Let's see what these guys got to say.
The president has 4 years, nearly 4 years for Joe Biden, a full 4 years for President Trump. And if they wade into that,
I mean, dude, you definitely know Joe's gonna say some random stuff.
Is or isn't true.
What we see in our polling so often,
We know for a fact.
memories Americans have.
Sure.
And so it's not just fact checking, it's reminding people that when
He's gonna say something very
as Ronald Reagan, peace through strength will actually
probably to be like, wait, what are you talking about? Completely wrong topic, answering different questions that weren't asked.
As Donald Trump will say, America's not active.
Oh, yo, how do you like it? You like Capsule?
Information space, and I think that's what's fascinating about what you're doing here, Major, where we are not just fact checking and elevating truth. We have to actively.
I heard it was pretty good actually. I heard it wasn't terrible.
No, this is wrong. This is why it's wrong. Because that eco space out there is spreading these untruths in ways in outlets other than ours.
We are moments away from this debate. Let's get a quick check-in with Nancy Cordes and Robert Costa there in Atlanta. Nancy?
Nora, the president is going to want to talk about a range of issues tonight: reproductive rights, taxes, the economy. But first and foremost, he wants to make the case that Donald Trump is too dangerous to allow back into the Oval Office.
It's already starting.
Felon, that he inspired the January 6th insurrectionists. That he
It's already starting.
That he's under indictment here in Georgia, in this very county, Fulton County.
Oh no. I knew that was going to be a talking point. Oh, because of the aim assist? Is that why? The aim assist kind of messes with it?
I just was speaking to some Trump campaign advisors, and they said this is all about former President Trump trying to win over those Nikki Haley Republicans. He's already got his base, but can his temperament tonight, his personality, his answers on really important policy issues, can it convince independents, traditional Republicans, those who have skepticism about him, to give him another shot, a full look?
Okay. Yeah. It's also weird going from probably playing computer to playing console again, right? I mean, going keyboard and mouse to controller is so awkward. Such a weird such a weird thing.
I do feel like this is going to be not only a clash of personality, but hopefully a clash of ideas about not only their own records, but what they'll do in the future.
And you know, Nora, one of the things that comes back to me again and again is how serious the issues are that are facing the country right now.
Oh, Lord.
And that it has to be more than a tweet or a bumper sticker, and that we are excited there's a debate when that used to be the very basic expectation of what voters.
Yeah. Yeah, keyboard and mouse is mostly my go-to as well. But, you know, I like controller on some games. Like, controller on, like, if I was to play, like, Fortnite or something like that, or, like, a Call of Duty, I like more on, I definitely enjoy more on controller because it's so fast-paced. Playing fast-paced on, like, a keyboard mouse is so difficult.
Demand that from the candidates. They don't have to take what's being fed tonight.
All right. Thanks to all of you, and our coverage of the CNN presidential debate will continue momentarily here on CBS News 24/7 and on your local CBS station. Up next, the next and first presidential debate.
Oh.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why? You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong?
What in the
with that?
world?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make
What
sense?
have you
What's your
learned?
response?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has that glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
On Face the Nation, the way to learn is to listen.
We may have a recession.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is
Wait, what?
key to understand.
I missed that. I don't know what you're saying. It was bad being. What's wrong with being what now?
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much
I missed what they were saying for each question. I must have missed what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, I missed whatever you're talking about. It starts at 9, right? So it starts in 1 minute. What are we doing here? I want to see them both walk out on stage. That's what I want to see. I want to see them both walk out on the stage. One of them limping, of course. Wonder which one that would be. Here we go. Here we go. We're going up to it. Oh shit, okay. 69 minutes is wild, but bet. Watching the debate, let's go. I think I'm gonna watch it all. It should be a couple hours, I think. I wonder how long it's actually gonna be. Yeah, I don't know if they said how long it's supposed to be. I think it's no, it's supposed to be an hour and a half. So it'll probably be 2 hours long. Not too bad. Oh, gonna be higher. All right, we're ready. We're ready. Got like goosebumps ready to watch this right now. Getting nervous. Yeah, seriously. They never
Checking now to Atlanta for the first
they never
presidential
talk to each
debate
other.
hosted by CNN.
Nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4
They messed up that transition so hard.
Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight.
Here we go. Here we go.
The rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss.
I wonder why they picked that. It was so
Each
weird.
candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question.
I think he flip-flopped
and 1 minute
sides.
each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate
What is
will
going
get 2
on?
minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact
Oh,
with
Lord.
staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate both candidates and the
I'm so
campaigns,
nervous right
we
now.
hope to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you? Great to be here. Thank you.
And please
Oh
welcome
no.
the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Oh no. What is happening? Well, right off the bat, one of them looks very
Gentlemen, thanks so much
old.
for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy.
Right, we're getting right into it.
Biden, inflation
We're getting
has
right
slowed,
into it.
But prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased.
This is
For
gonna be
example,
so
a basket
wild.
of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they
Oh
were
my
under
God, look
President
at him.
Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs, and we brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble.
Why is he
In
whispering?
Pennsylvania, I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination of
Okay.
corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at what was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where, and now we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200.
That is the only thing this man has done. I hear that every day.
And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price of around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well.
Instantly.
Was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up
Oh my
Great
God.
Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929.
Absolutely.
By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even
Absolutely.
possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, the bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else that thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president.
Hey, I got a tax cut and I'm broke.
He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover.
Well, that was
The
COVID.
idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where
What?
we had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up.
What is happening?
You respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow
Yeah,
up.
that's
You want to
ridiculous.
impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China.
China.
It's going to
China.
force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But
Yeah.
he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut.
I sure got a
That's
tax
why we
cut.
had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce-back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months.
Absolutely.
And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your
Wow.
administrations, the national
He's
debt
cooking him
soared to
already.
record highs.
We're only a couple
According to
minutes in. He's
nonpartisan
cooking him.
analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get
Dude, you're right.
much better than just about
He's like,
anything
wow,
else.
that
But we spurred that tax.
that pancake was so good earlier.
We cut the taxes. As an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet. the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and
Can't
we were
argue
right
with
in the
that.
middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails,
There
and
it
mental
is.
institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this.
Damn.
President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million.
If we just tripled the tax rates.
We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, childcare, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make...
I think he has memorized as many numbers as he can tonight. He's not going to be able to respond to anything.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with...
Oh.
Look.
Uh-oh, there it is.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy
There's
Social
no
Security.
way.
Millions and millions of people.
There's no way. He just glitched and then they moved on quickly when he was glitching.
Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They can't believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything.
States. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, and getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't follow your heart. But
you just cooked
you have
right
to get
there.
elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is
Oh, my
that the
Lord.
vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous.
The vast amount of scholars. Who is that?
Should be able to have it. We're in a state where
What
in 6
scholars?
weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
What?
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion's concerned, it is now back with the states. The
Dude,
states
Lincoln, bro.
in many cases,
This guy Joe is
frankly, a
nuts.
very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which
He's
is what
glitching.
everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people.
We're
That's
cooked.
where they wanted it. Every legal scholar
We're
wanted it
cooked,
that way.
bro.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into
He
the
looks so
pregnancy a
constipated
woman
up
can
there. What's
obtain
up with
an
that
abortion.
face?
Do you support
Oh,
any
my Lord.
legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state.
What?
The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month,
Yeah.
even after birth, because some states, Democrat run.
No, yeah,
take
he's
it
ready
after
with
birth.
scripted
Again,
answers.
the former governor of
Obviously,
Virginia
he is not flowing
put
at
the baby
all.
down
He's
and we
just
decide what
he's
to
just
do
saying
with it.
things that he
So
was told to say.
he's willing to,
He's doing a
as we
better
say,
job at
rip the
remembering it than I
baby out
thought
of
he
the womb
would.
in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
Oh, when
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. you can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, Constitutional Scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security.
Aw.
A record number of migrants have
He's not going to get the response to
crossed the
that.
border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where
Period, bro. Period.
With the number of border police there are.
Period.
We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we find ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure...
Whoa, that's not even true. That's when he was vice president.
That's not the right way to go.
That's when Biden was vice president.
I've changed the law. What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
What is
I
happening?
don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. All he had to do was leave. All he had to do was leave.
No.
He decided to open up our border.
This is so...
People that are...
Oh my Lord, this is
people
wild.
From mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world.
Oh my
They're coming
God.
From the Middle East, everywhere.
No
all
way.
over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency,
There's
we
no
had,
way.
according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president. I will say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers. Killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said.
What is he talking about?
He's lying.
What is he talking about?
Staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including...
Yo, this is crazy, dude. I'm not crazy, right? I have no idea what he's talking about, like 25%. He started so strong. I mean, it was strong for him, but...
The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists.
Al-Baghdadi.
And it had a huge impact on
it was
not
ISIS.
just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people.
He did use all of his brain already.
In every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and They just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, or we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And the group opposed that. We're also in a situation where
he keeps just saying he's lying, but he's
my
not.
son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits. Came back with stage 4 glioblastoma.
He's gonna get punished.
In France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
What?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this.
Wow.
Who would say, I'm
He
at a
just,
cemetery?
yeah, why would he
I'm
say
talking
that they're
about our
suckers?
veterans?
That's crazy.
Nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have.
No, he claimed that
I would
Trump went to a cemetery and called them all suckers and losers.
19 people.
That's crazy.
It was never said by me. It was made up by
Yeah,
him. Just
wow.
like Russia was made up. Just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up. Just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
Yeah, he just straight up lied, right?
On your staff,
A
you
bunch.
said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their
Oh my God, that's
the only sacred
ridiculous.
obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign
Yeah, this
policy.
is
I wanna
absurd.
begin with Russia's
Wow,
war
I didn't expect how
against
crazy
Ukraine,
this guy was
which
going to
is
come
now
in.
its
Wow.
third year. Former President Trump, Russian
I mean, this
President
is some
Vladimir
serious
Putin
lying.
says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So
I know
let's
he's
get
getting
that straight.
tired.
And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, a president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have.
What's
never,
happening
he would
with
have
his
never
face?
invaded Ukraine. A lot of
What is
people are
happening
dead
with
right
Joe's
now,
face
much
right
more than
now?
people
He's
know.
creeping
they
me
talk
out,
about
man.
Numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think
Some
he
of these
encouraged
facial
Russia
expressions
to
are
join
freaking
in.
me out,
I'll tell you
dude.
what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Bro, he is
Afghanistan,
tweaking out.
where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration.
A lot of these emotions are indicative of dementia.
President Biden?
The anger spurring out of nowhere is crazy.
The fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran
Is it
attacked
malarkey?
American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president, they attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union.
I think
he wanted to reestablish Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
This dude is lying. Holy moly, he's lying.
Are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable.
Yeah, what?
This is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now. Or
oh no, he's glitching again.
To Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion.
Yeah, and I can't afford a rack of bananas.
And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
Man, RFK should be on this stage. He really should be on this stage.
Thousands and thousands of people.
What about China, bro?
He's made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries?
He's not taking
So
Ukraine.
If you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if
He's
he
trying
does
to get back
what
his
he
old
says and
land,
walks
right?
away. By the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have.
I'm going to call it now that CNN's going to rate
Thank you.
Biden
Moving
winning
on to the
this.
Middle East. In
I think a lot of
October,
mainstream
Hamas
media is going to say that
attacked
Biden
Israel,
won.
killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds
He's
of
organizing
hostages.
them from worst to
Among those
best
held and
lives.
thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put
Is that
forward
true?
a proposal to resolve this conflict.
Yeah.
But so far, Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza.
Yeah, and
So
you're doing
what
nothing.
additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israel was accidentally killed.
This guy trolling.
It stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world.
Is he trolling?
They're two different things. Hamas cannot.
Iran during Trump's presidency.
As to how they can get Hamas like we did Bin Laden.
Iran during Trump's presidency was completely broke, pretty much. They were crumbling economically. The second this administration took over, I think now we started buying oil from them, and we allowed other people to buy oil from them again. And now, I don't know, 200 billion GDP, something like that, something ridiculous. They're very rich again.
Have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
Oh, my Lord.
Foolishness. This is the guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have...
NATO was supposed to disband after World War II. NATO was supposed to disband years ago.
A war in Europe, a major war in Europe. What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement.
Ukraine's not in NATO.
You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control.
Ukraine is not a part of NATO.
On to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump,
What?
just to follow up, would you support
where did
the
it
creation
go?
of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said...
That's true. He said you can't be a part of NATO anymore if you don't pay.
I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay.
Right.
They asked me that question. Would you...
Yeah, because we're the only ones paying.
At a very secret meeting of
You're not paying into it.
States at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened?
I doubt it. I think he's just writing. I think he's writing notes.
The next day and the next months.
He's right, though.
Now we're in the same position.
NATO, no one was paying.
Thank you.
Bills.
Let's turn to the issue
No one
of
was paying, and he
democracy.
made him pay.
Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your
Here it
supporters
is. I knew that was
day,
coming up.
Some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions
He
and
didn't do
inaction
any.
on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the
Oh
lowest
my
regulations
lord.
ever. On
This dude
January
is
6th, we were
hilarious.
respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership?
Oh, if he has a script, that would be crazy. I thought that was against the rules.
Which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath
Dude.
through your actions and inaction on
Tell them
January
you told him to go
2021,
home,
and
which you
worry that you'll
did.
do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy
He did.
Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing.
He might need a
They asked
script,
me to go
honestly.
make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in that dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll not forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are
Dude, Biden might fall off the
he
stage
wants to let
soon.
them all out, and now he says
If this goes on too
such
long.
a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Oh my God, there comes the bloodbath.
Some people,
Here it goes. Here it
you'd be
goes.
ashamed of yourself. What
I
you've
knew
done,
that.
how you've destroyed the lives of so many people.
Yeah.
When
A lot of
they
people that were
ripped
just on the
down Portland,
property.
When they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring
Burnt
in the
city
National Guard,
down.
that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left
Sure
immediately.
did. You
What
bet
he
your
said
ass.
about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and
All
deleted
Democrats, he
all of the
says.
information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
Yeah, they would
The
go to
only person
jail.
on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
Oh, there it is. There's the first time.
What he's telling you is simply
I was waiting for that to come up.
The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who was convicted, deserves to be convicted.
I was waiting
The
for that to
idea
come
that
up.
They didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors.
I knew that
broke
was
the
coming
windows,
soon.
Occupied offices, turned over desks, turn them over
Yeah, dude.
statues.
Yeah, I've been at 299 since like this morning or yesterday or something. I'm trying to hit 300. That'd be awesome.
The first two debates we had, first time around, I said, "Will you denounce the Proud Boys?" He said, "No, I'll tell them to stand by." The idea he's refusing. Will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol?
Oh my God.
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have.
Yeah, what?
After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail.
Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, hell yeah. Start making videos, bro.
Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go
I enjoy
after
it, you know.
opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success.
Yeah.
But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon.
Oh my Lord, there it is.
His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should
Probably.
have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things.
They sure
but he
did.
could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon.
Absolutely.
With all of the things that he's
I mean,
done.
he's done straight
horrible
treasonous
things. All of the
deals.
death clause at the border. Telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo.
Yeah, it is.
That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you.
He literally said we're not going to give you a penny unless you change your prosecutor
This man is a criminal.
to make his son better.
You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President
Oh,
Biden
nice. Yeah.
has said,
PlayStation, I didn't know they offered something like that. That's pretty cool.
Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that
Here we go.
really
Blasphemy.
wrong
Here we go.
What you're talking about is outrageous.
Outrageous. There it
Simply
is.
lie. Number
Malarkey and
Number
lie.
two, the idea that you
Baloney.
have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's
You're
simply wrong.
doing
No
it
president's
right
ever spoken
now.
Like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Oh my God.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started
Wow.
and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan
He's really,
DA's office
he really,
to
that
start
was
case.
full ad
That
hominem
case
right
is gonna
there.
be appealed and won.
No proof as
We had a
well.
very
Wow.
terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat.
Horrible.
The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats.
That was pure
appointed people,
corruption in that courtroom.
both the civil and the criminal.
Oh,
He basically
wow.
went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up way up. You know that.
They sure did.
And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden.
I mean, that's why we're doing this
said,
weird
quote,
old
Donald Trump and his
style of
MAGA
debating, right?
Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot
And what's he
more
done,
coming. He's got
dude?
a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of.
But this dude's admitting.
I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know.
Yes, you
that's
do.
no problem. And so the fact that
You do know what the juries are going to do.
Say that I'm going to seek retribution.
He didn't say that.
Say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas. What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq.
He's
because of Iraq.
grossly misquoting right now.
Until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bio.
These talking points are crazy right now.
Back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people?" the people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic?
To clarify that, he said both people on both sides are good people, and then he went back and said not including white supremacists, and he denounced that multiple times.
Sense of American democracy.
Multiple times.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out.
Yeah.
Because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that story. He just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked.
What is Joe looking for?
Nonsense story. He knows that.
What is Joe looking for?
Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods.
That's not what he said, though. These are gross misrepresentations.
Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 cabinet officers refused to endorse.
He's misrepresenting all of his ideas and everything that's happened.
So why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN.
Oh, our first break. Wow. What do we think so far, man? What do we think so far? I will say I'm surprised how long it took to actually get to the convicted felon thing. I thought that was going to come up right away. Genuinely. I thought that was going to be like the first thing someone said was convicted felon, convicted felon, convicted felon. I really thought that was going to be like the first thing. Let me mute this. I'm kind of enjoying this so far. I knew it was going to be exciting. Joe glitched out like 7 times. But that's okay. He's actually remembered more talking points than I thought he was going to remember, which is pretty cool to see. Because I didn't expect that. Let me get rid of these ads. So not mine, bro. Not my ads. So, yeah, I mean, he's remembered talking points a lot better than I thought. Trump he's almost fallen into a couple of traps here and there. I think Joe's just trying to, attack his character, which I guess is bound to happen, right? I mean, because he can't argue the numbers. That's how we saw how well that went in the beginning. Like when they were speaking economy in the very beginning, I mean, it was washed. I mean, Joe to even for Biden to even claim that he came into office with 9% inflation rate when we know that's not true is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that stuff's just in statistics. That's a simple Google search away, finding out what the inflation rate is and what it went up to. If I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, I think 9% inflation rate came from late 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, later, he was already president at the time for 2 years by the time that happened. So a lot of the misrepresentations are pretty crazy. I was surprised he brought it back to Charlottesville. I mean, that happened in what? That happened in 2017? Am I wrong there? Am I right? I think sometime around then, I mean, a fair time ago. So, and then the whole, good people on both sides thing. He actually, he's gone back and fixed that multiple times and said, no, I didn't mean any of the people, partaking in the burning of the cities or anything like that. Obviously that stuff's not good, but yeah, I honestly, I wish RFK was up there right now. I wish RFK was on the stage. I think a lot of this nonsense would be a little more ironed out, a little more professional. I mean, you kind of figure you put 2 80-year-old dudes on a stage that are have served well past their prime years. You put them on a stage together, and it's always gonna reduce down to this ad hominem, just straight up, argumentative. I mean, Joe's getting angry. He's getting very angry. You can see. I mean, he's looking left and right. He's got freeze face on. It's just so they're more kind of attacking personal character, which I guess we kind of figured was gonna happen. So I want to give it another shot. Hopefully they can bring it back to numbers. The thing is, I'm not convinced that Joe has any numbers. Yeah, bro. Yeah, I hope this turns around a little bit. I'm not really sure what else they're going to really ask about at this point. I mean, how long are we in right now? We're about like an hour in. A little over an hour in. Or no, maybe a little less than an hour in, actually. Yeah, I don't know. I still don't like the whole muting the mics thing, but alright, anyway, let's see. Good huddle. Let's get back to it.
Term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earned far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there are more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history.
No, yeah, neither of them should be running.
Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number 3.
Since Trump's presidency, very long time.
For black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
What?
In addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make.
Yeah, what's up, Pete? Welcome, bro.
Incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done.
Child care, as in, I'm assuming he means some kind of service, like daycare services. Is that what he's talking about? I'm not actually privy to what he's referencing here.
Voters who are disappointed with the progress so far.
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the
If it had to do with volunteerism, what?
Millions have benefited from that, and we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everyone.
And he caused the inflation.
It's killing people. They can't buy groceries
like I always said
anymore.
that.
They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out there.
Yeah, that energy bill kind of fucked everything with a lot of inflation.
That his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Oh, is it quiet right now?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back.
Let me know if that's
50%
better.
Unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing anything, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity.
He wants to cut the cops.
Have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way.
Did he just say he wants to cut the cops, bro? That was like the whole Democratic protest for 10 years, was defund the police. There's no way he said that.
Communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police.
Yeah, here we go.
How close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group.
Yeah,
what he's done
I actually agree with that. I know it's a vast exaggeration,
the
but
fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina.
Yeah, definitely.
He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever.
If Tim Scott wasn't so damn boring, he would have been up here.
He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever.
We had H2O.
And we were using
what the
all
fuck?
forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
Yo, H2O, let's go.
Colleges.
H2O.
$50 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges.
Yo, H2O, let's go.
The kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money. But now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we
well, that's a political
1.5
thing.
degrees Celsius at any one point where there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States.
The countries that are causing this pollution should be paying the most money.
That money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it, and it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now,
China's like 40% of the world's pollution by
I'm
themselves.
the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But
Hey, you actually might be right about that. On the stage, on the stage.
Our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to? The United States can't get its pollution under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps.
Yeah, he goes right back to the script every time.
Just like the Peace Corps, and we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change
every Christmas, bro.
Pollution. But the idea.
He grows again. Him and the Grinch have the same smile, though, low key.
And he's really concerned about pollution and about climate. I've not seen any indication of that. And
I don't think he acted concerned, to be fair.
Prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
so every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security,
and by the way, what?
Will see their benefits cut in
by the way,
10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I've been proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program.
I wonder how much Joe's paying on his taxes from the hundreds of millions he got from Russia.
Measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing will do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security.
What the hell?
He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security.
He's going to war against this guy.
And Medicare, both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a
don't feel like it, big dog.
400,000 people. 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. The only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where we talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the
yeah, he does need some HTO. That voice is tripping out.
I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things, too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country.
Joe Biden.
And they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger.
Give him some apple slices ASAP. Get him some apple
The idea
slices,
that
bro.
veterans are not being taken care of. I told you before. And by the way, when
Dude, I
said
see homeless
suffering
veterans
erosion,
every
he said
single day.
He acknowledged
Every
after
single
he
day.
fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a
But what about the
situation
other
where
19 witnesses?
all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up.
Yeah,
And
economists
by the way,
have been
worst
talking about
president in history,
recessions and
159
depressions
presidential
every year.
scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President
Yeah,
Biden,
that
thank you
was
so
the
much.
worst
Let's turn to
article-
the cost
that
of
was the worst
child
article
care,
I've
which
ever
many
seen
American
before.
families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child for many families. The
You need
cost
some
of
Poland
child care
Springs,
for two
bro.
children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very
Yeah.
highly respected, much
How
more
many
so
more?
than him.
How many more
The
times
other
does he have
thing
to
is,
repeat that?
He doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people.
Damn straight
at
he
the
was no
FBI,
good.
Drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We are the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world.
Right,
No
but that
one
wasn't
thinks
because
we're
of
weak.
you. You've
No
done
one
nothing but
wants to screw around
shame
with us.
that.
Nobody. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history.
Saying he's the
That's a
worst over
fact.
Herbert Hoover
That's
is crazy.
That's not
Or like
conjecture.
LBJ.
He
or
can
like,
argue they're wrong, but
I don't
that's
know,
what they
there's
voted.
like 30 other
the idea
terrible
that he is
presidents.
doing anything to deal with child care. He did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men.
Or we should just
single
get
parents to be able to
families
go
back
to
in the
work.
home.
And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you,
Or we
President
should
Biden.
just have,
President
we
Trump,
should
the
make it
question was about
affordable
what
enough
would
to
you do
have
make
families
child care
back in
more
the
affordable,
home.
If you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done
He
is
is
so
rated
bad.
the worst. He's the
And
lowest
they rate
exception
me-
rate ever.
I'll show you. I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the 2 of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about
the fact of the matter.
He will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise the tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say?
Those odds look
That's
crazy.
That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are very important. Number 2, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years.
I made the most money I've ever made under Trump's presidency.
You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number 1. Number 2, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids.
Yeah, where's
what will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction?
That'll be the quick answer.
Struggling to get the treatment they need.
China.
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China.
Why does Joe look so?
He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And
he really might be on
industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us.
They
as
are
a
walking
country.
all over
they
us.
They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
He's going to say close the
border.
border.
Very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border.
There it is. I was waiting for him to say that.
It started to increase.
That's
we
his
got
go-to, baby.
We bought the certain dog. That's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs.
I don't even know what that is, man.
More numbers of
fentanyl machines.
Agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and
I mean,
again, the
dude,
question is
there's
about
a much simpler
Americans
option.
in the throes of addiction right now, struggling
What
to
in
get
the
the
world
treatment
are
they
you
need.
talking about?
Because this does pertain to it. He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term.
Well,
how do you address concerns about your capability to
than
handle
ever.
the toughest job in the
Here
world
comes.
well
I'm
into
sharper
your 80s?
than ever.
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that look at the record. Look
That was
what
a
I've
hell of a
done.
dig.
I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new
Turned
jobs.
it around for
800,000
who, big dog?
manufacturing jobs,
Not new
more
jobs.
investment in America.
Not new
Over
jobs.
Billions of dollars in private investment.
They are
in
not new
in
jobs. You
enterprises.
can't call
We
them
are
new.
growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call them, to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and our.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but millions of our own citizens don't trust our government.
They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities?
It's fairly obvious.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one.
He did produce his results as well.
I go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year.
Yeah.
And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it.
He
can't
cooks
hit a
it
ball
on the
50
golf
yards.
course.
He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter.
He can't maintain his emotions at all.
As good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
I've never seen anyone
You
ace
see
him.
he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says.
What is happening?
Take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy.
Are we
to
really
play
talking about golf
carry
right
my
now?
Bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. That he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Oh, now it's 8.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
Let's
let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about you.
They're actually debating on
Pledge
golf.
tonight
They're
that
debating
once
on
all
golf.
legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election,
That is
regardless of who wins.
absurd.
And you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that.
Yeah,
It's totally
sure.
unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is,
8
if
handicap,
the election
bro.
is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he
Someone else
indicted
would
me
be.
because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation
throwback.
because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane.
Terrible.
They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's
Bro,
a thing called
Ukraine
Article
is
5.
not
Attack
NATO.
on one is attack on all and required response. The idea,
What is
I
he
can't think of
talking
a
about?
single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because
Yeah,
we're
look
a
at his
powerful
forehead.
nation. We have wonderful people.
You see his forehead? That dude's got full Wi-Fi bars right now going on in his forehead. He's got perfect signal.
We're needed. We're needed to protect the world because of our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv.
That's great
make sure
connection.
they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of
You
this
see
election?
that
regardless
brain,
of who
bro.
wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it.
From Trump. I like when he
Not gonna
talks to
play
the third
games with
person.
me. He
It's
knew that.
hilarious.
I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else in a nice location,
I don't
someplace.
think that's truthful.
And again,
I think he was
no
running
indictments,
regardless.
no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed. And
When he got more votes the second time than he did the first time.
Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow.
Well, we know there
all
was a
this
lot of stuff with social medias,
misrepresentation,
right?
all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll
I'll
accept
tell you
it because
what.
you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential
Dude, I gotta
debate.
pee so bad. I'll be right back. Oh my lord, I gotta pee.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team. Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail is his
Summer is here and you've got places to go.
All good road trips start here. Just make sure you're road ready.
Book your road ready appointment today at hendrickcars.com.
For free.
What does strength mean to you? Some say it's how fast you run a mile. But there are other ways to define strength. What matters is that we figure it out together. Fitness Together believes personal training should be just that, personal. Whether in a private studio suite or virtually on a live one-on-one session, your workout is custom built to fit your needs, so you can get strong, however you define it.
Assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question
All
to
right.
answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant
Yeah, they're probably chugging some
abuses
H2O.
of a
Alright, let me mute this for now. Oh my lord. They're probably chugging that H2O.
I feel like
Just muted here. Oh. Alright, who we got winning so far? Who do we think's winning? I know who I think's winning. Just personally though, I'm not too sure what everyone else is thinking. But I'm not at all surprised with how this is going, to be fair. This is pretty much exactly how I pictured it. To be fair, there's a lot of shakiness on both sides. You say Palestine's winning? That's an interesting thought. I hadn't quite thought about that yet. You might be right, honestly. They might be winning. Oh, Lord. Dude, this is... I just feel like it's almost too obvious tonight. More obvious than they were intending originally. I think there's a lot of lying going on. And it makes it, there's a couple good things I think that Biden might have said. I mean, he keeps referencing that insulin stuff, but that wasn't necessarily all him, but it's a good thing to reference. The problem is he keeps lying about stuff like, oh, veterans love him. Veterans, I mean, he might be the most hated president by veterans ever. He might just be. I mean, the dude has done nothing but, he screwed the military in so many ways. I mean, there's no reason we should have troops out in in Syria and places like that right now. There's just no way. He's all about he's all about war, man. He's always been about war. There's a good book about it, actually, about all of Biden's votes throughout all of his time as a politician. He's always voted for war, and he always will vote for war. It's just kind of how he's always been. He obviously has a hand in the purse, but we're going right back into questions.
2 minutes.
I missed the question. No. Oh, is this a closing statement?
We've made significant progress.
I think it's a closing statement.
The debacle that was left by
Lord.
President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit, number one. He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for the regulation of drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400.
Oh my God! If I hear this fucking point one more time,
for every senior, no matter what how much prescription they need, you know what that did?
It's like the one thing this dude is so happy about.
Federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have childcare. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for childcare. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Oh, wow. He's about to cook
Like
him.
so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump,
Wow.
President Biden.
Powerful
Stay
stuff,
with
man.
us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Wait, what is it?
And so the first presidential debate of the 2024 election season is in the books. As you witnessed, President Biden opening this debate and continuing with a very shaky voice, a raspy voice that we have learned from advisors close to him that apparently he's had a cold for the past several days. But he also had a number of wandering answers during this debate. He had a number of facts and accomplishments that he wanted to touted, but I think his voice and sometimes was distracting from that. President Trump offered repeated lies and exaggerations, but then President Biden failed to fact-check Trump most of the time. We've got our entire panel here tonight to discuss what we witnessed. John Dickerson, I'll start with you.
For the majority of Americans who don't want this choice, the debate met those expectations. I think you characterized it correctly. What we heard about President Biden is people who know him said, when he was underestimated in the 2020 campaign, people said, look to his convention speech, and he exceeded expectations. They said, look to his State of the Union addresses when he exceeded expectations.
Yeah, he exceeded not
he
being
came in well under expectations, both as a matter of performance and as arguing for why his vision for the future is better. As you mentioned, Donald Trump gave fantastical, delusional answers on January 6th, on Charlottesville, on what he said about the theft of the last election. And that matters because he's trying to convince people who saw things with their own eyes that what they saw was not so. And part of being president is seeing things clearly. So how the voters will make something of this, I'm not sure. But for President Biden, who had the behavioral challenge tonight, that's the theatrical challenge.
Oh, is that it? That's it for the stream, I guess. Well, hey, that was fun. That was fun. I'm gonna go ahead and take a random guess here that they were about to go on a rant about how Trump lied the whole time and Biden was telling the truth, but Biden couldn't speak very well, not because he's 80 years old and struggling with the beginning of dementia, but it's because he was struggling because he's had a cold for weeks. I fully believe that that's what's going to incur in that continuation of this of their talk there. I feel like the moderators were actually really fair. I mean, they didn't have to. There was multiple times they caught Joe as he was struggling to speak there, but they were fair because of the muting of the mics. They really didn't have to like enforce anything, so that kind of worked out in their favor. What I think, and I'm sure what majority of people will think, is that Trump won that first debate. And Joe looked a little better than what I thought he was going to look like. And, unfortunately, that's not saying much. But, yeah, that was fun, though. That was fun. I'm happy to watch that. And I think they kept it strictly business. They had the questions flowing throughout the whole time. So can't be complained. Wasn't too much stalling. Honestly, a lot of attacks on the personal character, but I honestly thought there was going to be more. So, not bad. All right, yep. And on that note, I'm ending the stream. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. And, hey, we'll see what happens, see what comes out in the news, and let's see who they think won the debate. All right, peace.